Vanilla World of Warcraft was a time of imbalance, a chaotic but charming version of the game where there was a huge difference between the haves and the have-nots. It was a time where things weren't really flushed out that well, which resulted in some pretty crazy shenanigans. One of the things responsible for this wild west of imbalanced PvP were the trinkets in the game, and just how crazy they were, or dare I say, overpowered. You see, while trinkets that give you a boost in spell power or attack power have been part of the game for the last 19 years, none of them were as crazy as the ones from Vanilla World of Warcraft. To fully understand how crazy they were, we have to go back to 2005. Back then, everyone was still busy figuring out the game, and Molten Core and Onyxia were the highest rates available. It was also a time where many of the items we know now were much more primitive. Caster items in particular were extremely bare bones, with a very scarce amount of them giving extra spell damage to begin with. Back in those days, if you had give or take 100 spell damage, you were doing quite well for yourself. So you can imagine then that the Talisman of Ephemeral Power was considered to be a huge deal. I mean, think about it. The trinket gives you 175 extra spell damage, which meant that back then, for those 15 seconds you were able to triple your total spell damage done, which was just unheard of. Now let me put that in perspective, because in the Burning Crusade, spell damage trinkets were also a thing. However, in those times, your average epic spell damage trinket provided a temporary bonus of give or take 200 spell damage. But during that expansion, if you would wield some sort of an epic trinket, your own spell damage from the rest of your gear would be around 800. So in this case, and in any other expansion since the Burning Crusade, the trinket would give a nice bonus, but nowhere near as crazy as in early vanilla. Because in this example of the Burning Crusade, your total spell damage would be increased by 25% give or take, as opposed to almost triple that in early vanilla. And well, it didn't stop there. If you use a trinket now, you notice that any other trinket with a use instantly gets a 30-second cooldown. This is because in vanilla, up to a certain point, you are able to pop 2 trinkets at the same time. So if you would have a Talisman of Ephemeral Power and combine that with, let's say, a Zandalarian Hero Charm, you would look at almost 400 extra spell damage. And while yes, later in vanilla gear with spell damage was a lot more common, it was still an insane boost in damage. And thus we have videos of Doomhammer, a mage that could literally kill anyone with just one macro. Or a shaman like I, who with 2 trinkets could easily do chain lightning crits well over 2500 damage. And luckily, for a brief period, on a private server, I was able to experience the same thing with my own elemental shaman with some pretty insane crits as a result. Now while in classic vanilla you get to experience some of it, it's by far not as crazy because you're not able to pop 2 trinkets at the same time, and because classic runs on the 1.12 version of WoW in terms of gear, where gear with spell damage is much more common. So in comparison, the trinket doesn't give that big of a boost as opposed to the early days of vanilla WoW. And while trinkets with a temporary boost will always be part of the game, they will never ever be as crazy as they were in retail vanilla World of Warcraft. And that's all for now. I hope you liked this quick story, and as always, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamster Wheel, and have a good one.